Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. We're starting at a slightly different time. We're still trying to iron out some technical issues, so I like to be honest with our audience. And hang in there with us because we're trying very hard here. Some of it's out of our control, but let's see if we can get her done, as they say. Right out the gate here, we've got a story about the liberals, progressives essentially, trying to use the January 6th, whether you want to call it an insurrection or whatever you want to call it, but trying to use the fact that the Senate under Republicans are blocking this inquiry, this special panel, if you will, that Pelosi and Schumer want to have. And they're going to use that fact that Republicans are doing that to try to end the filibuster. And the filibuster essentially, and we're going to get into details in a moment, but the filibuster is essentially the dam that if it breaks, then liberty is going to flow right down into the swamp and away from us, we the people, so to speak. And then Joe Biden, we're going to do a story about Joe Biden. His administration is literally flying illegal aliens, and specifically adult males, and some accompanied with children, but mostly adult males. And that's not enough to just let them cross the border, but they're actually putting them on airlines and flying them to different parts of the country. So we'll give you the details of that. But before we go any further, we always have to talk about our sponsors. At the top of that list is Big Daddy Unlimited, BDU, your Second Amendment headquarters. Now, where you find links to our sponsors is above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it. Check it out. Click on, in this case, Big Daddy Unlimited. You'll not only be helping the show, but you'll be helping yourself to get factory direct pricing on guns, ammunition, and over 100,000 other items delivered directly to your door, including tactical gear, protective wear, survival gear, literally knives and axes and everything in between. If it has anything to do with defending yourself, check out Big Daddy Unlimited. They're also your Second Amendment headquarters because they defend your Second Amendment rights on a daily basis. Then we have patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. The main thing you need to remember is the promo code for 20% off is our initials of our show, JMT, John Martin Talk, so JMT. Patriotthreads.org is a total fulfillment center. If you have a charity event and you want to sell shirts that have a patriotic theme that can be produced and the proceeds delivered to the charity of your choice, then you need to go to patriotthreads.org because that is their specialty. Then we also have Recoil TV. We have a channel within their channel. They have a YouTube channel, Recoil TV. Of course, we have one as well, John Martin Talks. Spell it all the way out. We could use more subscribers and viewers there. Appreciate that very much. But our show is archived on a daily basis on Recoil TV. They produce high-quality videos. If you haven't seen that site and you care about the Second Amendment, you should check it out because they have videos about the latest guns, ammunition, hardware, all the kind of things like Big Daddy Unlimited sells. Recoil TV produces videos on that, so check it out. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show. I want to make a brief mention of a story just to put it on your radar screen. It's kind of breaking overnight, and so we're not going to get too in-depth in it. We may talk about it tomorrow as details come out, but this is about the great state of Israel, our greatest friend and ally, Israel. It looks like Benjamin Netanyahu is on his way out as prime minister. You know, they've had multiple elections there within the last couple of years. They can't seem to put a unified government together, but it appears, and I'm just saying appears at this moment, that they are cobbling together a unified government. And if it happens, it would mean that Benjamin Netanyahu is no longer the prime minister of Israel. Personally, I think that is going to be very bad and certainly a sad day when that happens, because no one has been a stauncher supporter of their homeland than Benjamin Netanyahu. So we'll give you more details, possibly, like I say, tomorrow, over the weekend on Monday, when we have more information on it. But keep an eye on Israel right now because things are shaking up there. All right, let's get into the stories I've mentioned. This first one comes to you via NBC News. 5-alarm fire. Liberals use January 6th panel blockade as rallying cry to abolish the filibuster. So we're going to throw out the baby with the bathwater because a dude like this I call him Buffalo Hat Guy. He is in the Capitol on January 6th and others like him. It's just so crazy. What more do we really need to investigate? But let's get into the meat and potatoes here. As I say, this is a NBC News story. More than 100 liberal groups are urging Senate Democrats to abolish the 60-vote threshold using Republican blockade of a commission to investigate the Capitol riot as a rallying cry. So my question right off the top, what more really is there to investigate? Not to mention the fact that there's several House panels looking at this. There are several Senate committees already looking at this. The FBI is already looking at this. Homeland Security. There are multiple investigations looking into all this now. Why do we need a separate one? Well, it's only political. It's a political witch hunt. That's all it's about. But what more do we really need to know about what happened on January 6th? Essentially, it's pretty clear that there were people there, some of them Trump supporters, some of them may not. There may have been instigators. I'm not saying they weren't, but a number of people who were there to see Donald Trump's rally, whether you love it, hate it, or whatever. Keep in mind the president literally said, President Trump, let's go down there and peacefully protest. So he did not incite violence whatsoever. But when things happen, people get caught up in the moment. And a lot of the people, this is no justification for what happened, but a lot of people were just shown the door. They were open the doors and just let them in. Of course, we see the terrible video of people breaking windows and that kind of stuff. But if you actually look at what happened in the Capitol, it's not like it was ransacked or anything like that. They talk about armed insurrection. Well, there were no arrests of people that I know of that had arms other than maybe picking up something and smashing something. Not that that couldn't hurt people and destroy people. But the only people that were actually killed during the insurrection, if you want to call it that, appear to be Trump supporters. We were told that a police officer was bashed his head in with a fire extinguisher. Turned out that that was a total lie. They knew it was a lie when they were putting out the story. NBC News, who's putting out this story, actually, I remember them talking about that police officer. He died, and I'm not saying that it wasn't somehow connected to it. It's tragic loss of life, period, especially anybody who is serving, in the thin blue line, as they call it. But he died at home from an embolism, a stroke. He did not even die at the Capitol, and he wasn't even in distress at the Capitol. It was after he went home. But if you poll the average person on the street and ask, was there a police officer that got his head beat in by a fire extinguisher, I bet you way over half of the people, just average people, would say, yeah, that's what happened. It didn't happen. It's a lie. So I'm not sure what there is to really investigate. And I suspect, and I will prove it to you actually in just a minute, that this has nothing to do with the insurrection. It has to do with something else. And so we'll talk about that. A letter dated Thursday led by Fix the Senate Now, that's one of the groups, and co-signed by Indivisible, March for Our Lives, Our Revolution, and the Sierra Club and some other groups. This is one of the things they wrote in their letter to the Senate to do away with the filibuster. In the face of Republicans' inability and unwillingness to defend our democracy, it's clearer than ever that the filibuster needs to be eliminated. I love how these Democrats are always talking about saving our democracy. Imagine that. Well, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have a democracy. We have a representative republic, as Ben Franklin famously said many, many moons ago. We have a representative republic. That's what our country is. It is not mob rule, which is really what a true democracy is, essentially mob rule. Even parliamentary governments like the one in Israel we were talking about earlier have representatives. It's not that you just have a vote by all the people about every particular issue, because there's such a thing as the tyranny of the majority that our founding fathers knew all too well as well. But this idea that the Democrats are going to save democracy. Remember, we talked about this. I can't remember if it was yesterday or a couple of days ago. You know, sometimes it blurs. But we did a show and we talked about what happened out in Texas when they were passing their, or attempting to pass their election reform laws, that the Democrats circumvented the process by literally walking out. So they did, the Texas legislature didn't have a quorum. Well, the Democrats were defending democracy by circumventing democracy. They defended democracy by impeaching President Trump not once, but twice, even one time after he was a citizen, which is totally illegal and unconstitutional. The Democrats don't care about democracy whatsoever. They certainly don't care about a republic. They care only about political power. And that's what this is about. Although the letter is addressed to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the real targets are Democratic Senators Joe Manchin and of West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, a great senator from Arizona, the two most outspoken proponents of the filibuster in the party. So our democracy, if you want to call it that, our republic, could literally come down to two Democratic senators, Joe Manchin of West Virginia and I think her name is Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona. And it's amazing. I think we got a picture of them. I want to show them together. There they are right there. And so I don't know, are you comfortable with our future of our republic resting on these two? I actually like Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona more than I do, and trust her more than I do Joe Manchin, because we've seen what he's done, flip-flopped on stuff like Kavanaugh and everything else. So I don't really totally trust any of these people. But if they do, if true, as the Democrats say, that they hold strong on this, then I may have to rethink statements that I've made. I've said there are no moderate Democrats, and I still hold true to that they're basically just variations of level of progressives. But these two, should they hold true to all of this, I would have to say, well, there are two out of, thousands of people, because I don't know I'm not saying all Democrats. I want to make sure you understand that. But Democrat elected officials, to me, all seem to be progressive. And for me, my only political goal right now in this current climate of our country is to stop the political takeover, the progressive takeover of this great nation. So if these two, Sinema and Manchin, can help me with that, then they're friends of mine. So we'll see. The letter cites Manchin's recent remarks, that's the senator from West Virginia, that the GOP move to block the creation of the January 6th commission was disheartening. Why? It's just one more level to try to hurt. Basically, it's part of Trump derangement syndrome. That's what the whole January 6th commission is about. And he said, but disheartening, this is from Joe Manchin, and concerning for the country. And it calls for passage of the For the People Act. So this letter calls for passage of For the People Act. And whenever I've told you this before, but if I say it, it bears repeating. When you hear something like For the People, grab your ankles, because you're about to get stuck. I'm just telling you. That's the way politics are on both sides of the aisle. For the people means you're going to get screwed. I'm just telling you. But the For the People Act is basically this federalization of the election process. It's the SB1, HB1, which is really what this is all about. Sweeping bill to guarantee voting procedures like 15 days of early voting and mail-in ballots in all states. So the For the People Act. I put this meme up there. Well, Billy Bob, he's my psychic sidekick, put this meme up there. If you haven't met Billy Bob, he keeps me straight here. He's got a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. We are determined to stay in the public square no matter what. But Benjamin Franklin was talking about the signing of the Declaration of Independence at this point, but he said we either need to hang together or we'll surely hang separately. And I'm telling you, this SB1, HB1, the federalizing of the For the People Act, if we don't hang together as American citizens, forget Republicans, Democrats. I'm talking about if you love the Constitution of the United States of America, if you believe that we are a great experiment, which I say that because experiments don't always work out, and there's no guarantee, as Reagan once said, we don't pass this on in our bloodstream. We have to teach it to each generation. So if you care about life, liberty, and the pursuit, not the guarantee of happiness, then you better get behind what I'm telling you and understand that if this SB Act passes, SB1 or HB1, this federalization, this for the people, I would say another F word, but I don't do that here. But if we don't hang together and stop this, then we will, in a sense, hang separately, because the republic, as you know it, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, is gone. I don't know how to put it any sterner than that. Schumer plans, talking about Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader. God, I hate to say that, but it's true. Schumer plans to bring up the bill in the coming weeks, along with others like it, talking about this federalization. Listen to this, like the Paycheck Fairness Act and possibly the Alphabet Act, I call it, LGBTQ rights legislation, which are likely to be blocked by filibusters. They will test the Democratic resolve to preserve the supermajority. So they are attacking this, hammering away at the filibuster one piece at a time. One piece at a time. So I just say, why don't they go ahead and of course, Biden has basically done this. Why don't you just put Kamala Harris in charge of everything? Because she's done so well with the border that if she's now in charge of passing the For the People Act, then hopefully she'll do just as good a job as she did at the border. But put Kamala Harris in charge. I want to play a video. Billy Bob pulled this one up for me. Hang on a minute. I got to set it up just a little bit. I got to set it up by mainly warning you. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a bit frightening. But I want to play Kamala Harris and her, at her best, I suppose. Here's a compilation. Check it out.
Wow. In San Francisco.
First afternoon. So my point is, how do you define what you hear from?
I appreciate you being here on New Day.
Not everybody landed punches like you did, though. So you don't mean it.
It's called Candidate Mixtape. That was
Hip hop. Cardi B.
okay.
I think you get the picture. The only thing really missing from that is for her to go, my pretties. If you don't know that reference, maybe I guess I'm too old. Wizard of Oz, check it out. But one thing about it, if you might want to save that video, pull it out, because it would be great if you don't want, and I don't know about in the pandemic whether we even have trick-or-treaters or not, but if you don't want trick-or-treaters coming to your house, just put that tape on a continuous loop, and I guarantee you they will run the other way. But put Kamala in charge, man. Back to the article. Eli Zupnik, I don't know who he is, but apparently he is a spokesman for Fix the Senate Now. This is what he said. The next 2 months are going to be absolutely critical. He's talking about in the Senate. This is truly a 5-alarm fire. Democrats have to make the fundamental choice. Are they going to protect the filibuster, or are they going to protect voting rights? Total nonsense, period. The Constitution says that only the state legislatures can change the election laws. We don't have a federal election when it comes to president. We have essentially 50 state-by-state elections, and of course the Democrats want to do away with that. The only thing that Republicans are doing in the states that they have control in, they are shoring up their election laws to make sure that what happened, and I'm not talking about the fact that Joe Biden is president, the fact that we had millions of illegal votes cast. Now, we don't say the F word here. We talk because we get, we're trying to stay on social media. So we say mod. So, was there election mod, voter mod? Yeah. And I can tell you, I can prove it 100%. Now, I'm not talking about dead people. I'm not talking about Dominion software. All of that is out there, and there's a certain sense of reality of that. But there were millions of votes cast due to the pandemic because, as I say, this is very vital to understand this. This is what the Texas lawsuit was all about, that states like Florida joined in with, that the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, basically turned its back on. The Constitution is very clear that the only bodies within a state that can change election laws, not secretaries of state, not governors, not Stacey Abrams, but the legislative bodies in those states are the only ones that have the authority to do that. Well, a lot of the changes in 2020 election law, really all the changes for the most part, circumvented that process. Thus, they were unconstitutional. And I would tell you, it's not just my opinionated fact, it's a fact, period, that makes them illegal. I don't think they're going to be overturned, and I do think that we're stuck with Joe Biden. You know, he got the most ballots. There's no question about that. I'm not saying the most votes, but that's what they're doing. And they're talking about protecting voting rights is not the case at all. And I'm reminded, and I've played this tape quite often, but it's something you need to see. Rahm Emanuel, the former mayor of Chicago, the former chief of staff of Obama, he famously said this.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before. I think America...
That, ladies and gentlemen, is the cornerstone of the modern Democratic Party and their political strategy. Never let a crisis go to waste. And we're seeing that in this right here, because they're trying to make it sound like that, you know, do you really believe that it's just a coincidence that Joe Biden is talking about Jim Crow, Jim Crow, Jim Crow, when it talked about Georgia, when Georgia's election laws are not as strict as Colorado's election laws, where they pulled out Major League Baseball, the All-Star series, and took it out to Denver to punish Georgia, when Denver's voting laws are stricter than Georgia's. There's a reason why they're saying all this stuff. There's a reason why Joe Biden went to Tulsa a couple of days ago, and we talked about it on yesterday's show. That and I told you how to look. Another way, by the way, to look at our show, if you missed it, is to go to America's Voice News. America's Voice News is a great alternative to mainstream media. They stream on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. They have free apps on your Android or your iPhone. They're also Channel 219, Dish Network, and the Pluto channel. But we have our show archived there on their streaming service on a daily basis. We don't have a live show on there at this time. Maybe we will one day. But go to America's Voice News, whatever streaming service you use, it's free. And go under the shows tab once you click on there, and you'll see our show in like 16-minute, 3-part segments for your viewing pleasure. But as Rahm Emanuel said about never let a tragedy go to waste, Joe Biden was out in Tulsa the other day, the great unifier, and basically just stood up there and lied over and over and over to black Americans who had been through tragedy out there, have ancestors that went through tragedy in Tulsa, not downplaying that event whatsoever. But he talked about, for instance, the Ku Klux Klan and how there was a time when they were marching on Washington, and they had, I forgot how many House members he said they had, and they had 2 or 3 actual Senate members that were openly Ku Klux Klan. What he forgot to mention was that they also had a president in Woodrow Wilson that was an avid supporter of the Ku Klux Klan, and that all of those Kluckers were Democrats. Every one of those representatives that Joe Biden was talking about, and those members of the Senate that were, hating and on black people and basically racist sons of guns, which I'm not denying, they were all Democrats. But the media never brings that up. That's why it's so vital that you support shows like ours and spread the word. We got to educate people. If you're a grandparent out there or even a parent and you are having a hard time reaching some of your young people, give them an assignment. Say, hey, why don't you watch this guy for 3 or 4 days straight and see what you think? Because one of my goals is to be that bridge between kind of the old gray-haired like me, founding fathers, if you will, and the young people that can't put their cell phone down. I want to cross that bridge, and I'm willing to listen, because a bridge goes both ways. But I believe that when When my generation goes, the last hope to impart the wisdom of our forefathers goes with it. I'm just saying. So give them a homework assignment. But as far as like getting back to Rahm Emanuel, he's talking about a tragedy. Don't let a tragedy go to waste. But what the Democrats are doing right now is creating false tragedy everywhere. They're trying to divide us, not unify us in any way, shape, or form. Let me just give you an example. Okay, where's Joe Biden politically from? Now, I know he's from Scranton and all that, but politically, he's from Delaware, right? He's been a U.S. Senator for years and years from there. His home base of political operations is Delaware, right? So, and he was in he's been in politics for going on 50 years now. Most of that time as senator, vice president, and now president for God help us. He is what it is. So Delaware is his home state, right? So you would think if there's any place, if he really believed that the election laws that are being passed in places like Florida and Georgia and trying to Texas and places like that, if he really thought they were Jim Crow laws, why didn't he do something about Delaware's laws? Let me just give you the basics of election law in Delaware, and this comes from the election site. Delaware does not allow no excuse absentee voting. So they don't do cheat by mail. They don't do blanket. So the Democrats keep telling you that, the Republicans are all for mail-in balloting. No, that's not true. What the Democrats did, and this is where they circumvented election law, they mailed out ballots to every registered voter, whether they were alive or living in the state or whatever, just blanketly. And they had no way of really tracing them, no signatures, none of that stuff. And is it any wonder that a lot of them came back for Joe Biden? Remember, there were like 200,000 votes, I think it was, in Michigan. Don't hold me to it. I'm not saying there was voter fraud, that came back and only had Joe Biden, no under ballot, nothing, just Joe Biden, which is statistically pretty much impossible. So Delaware does not allow no excuse absentee voting. In other words, you have to request a ballot, you have to give a reason why you can't show up to the polls, and you have to get it certified and all that. Early voting is permitted for those who qualify for an absentee ballot. So early voting in Delaware is not open to everyone. It is open to people who apply for an absentee ballot and say that they can't be there on election day, so they offer them the ability to early vote. That's pretty restrictive. That's one of the most restrictive absentee balloting, early voting. It's much more restrictive than what we've had in Florida for years. So permitted for those who qualify. Listen to this. All Delaware voters, this is Joe Biden's home territory, where he was senator for like 40 years. All Delaware voters are asked to provide identification at the polls. So they have to have identity at the polls. Doesn't necessarily have to be photo ID, but they have to provide ID at the polls. So Delaware has some of the most restrictive laws in the land when it comes to voting. But you never heard a peep out of Joe Biden about that, because it has nothing to do with voting. It has to do with power. And they want to get this House bill, this Senate bill, the federal election, the For the People. You know what I said about that act? I guess when I say the For the People Act, they want to get that passed because that will give them the ability to hold on to the White House forever. And that is all this is about. The liberals have a tough road, getting back to this article, the liberals have a tough road ahead. Manchin has given that's the senator from Virginia, Democrat, has given no indication that the filibuster of the bill to create a January 6th commission will motivate him to nuke the 60-vote threshold. But there is a purpose. Kyrsten Sinema, the senator from Arizona, Democrat, defended the filibuster this week, saying the solution to, and listen to this, I love this, the solution to a failing Senate is to change your behavior, not to eliminate the rules or change the rules. Wow. I mean, I got to give it to Kyrsten, man. I can't argue with anything she just said. I'm becoming more and more a fan of hers, and I can't believe I'm saying that about a Democrat, because I'd lost all hope with the Democratic Party because of the people they've elected, not the rank and file people, but the people that are running that party. Man, if we had more Kirsten Sinemas, I guarantee you our country would be better. So I'm coming around to her. Abolishing the filibuster would require the votes of all 50 Democratic members. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, is a staunch proponent of the 60-vote threshold to advance the legislation. So here's the thing that scares me a bit. I don't trust people like Mitt Romney. And this is a Photoshop picture algorithm, just so you know. I'm pretty sure it's a Photoshop picture, at least the Romney part. But I think it pretty well describes it. I don't trust Romney not to cave in and vote with the Democrats. I don't trust Murkowski from Alaska as far as I could throw her. You know, I don't trust her. I don't really trust Collins out of Maine. You know, she just got reelected, so who knows what she will do. But I definitely don't trust Murkowski and Romney. So, you know, it could be overturned even if the two Democrats we mentioned stick with their principles, which is, you know, something to be said if they do. The groups in the letter, listen to this. The groups in the letter, we're going to come back and break this down, but I want to read you some of what they're all about. The groups in the letter represent causes like protecting the environment, Green New Deal, gender equality, you know, men competing in women's sports. We talked a lot about that yesterday. Gun control and raising the minimum wage, illustrating the breadth of the liberal priorities they believe are threatening by the 60 votes. So let's go over that again, because they say protecting the environment. That is code for, and I was going to play this in a minute, but this picture of the Flintstones pretty much sums up everything these people are against. They're against a combustion engine, so they want you to pedal away. They're against eating meat, so they don't want you to have that big rack of ribs right there. Man, every time I see that, it makes me hungry. I might get some ribs for lunch today. But it's all about protecting these sacred cow groups of the liberal left. It's about taking your guns away. Have you noticed, and I started to do a story on this, but I've been doing it pretty regular, gun sales are going through the roof all over the country, even out in California. And black Americans are buying guns at a super rate. And a lot of this is because they don't trust what's happening with the Democratic Party. They may not be in love with Donald Trump, you know, and I get that. I understand that. I don't, you know, agree with you, but I get it. You don't like Donald Trump. But let me tell you this. I don't care what your political persuasion is. If you believe in the Second Amendment, there are two things you should do. One is to go to our sponsors, Big Daddy Unlimited, for factory direct pricing on those purchases. You're not going to beat it at any brick and mortar gun store, unless you go maybe to one of theirs, which is called Big Daddy Guns. You can do that online as well. But go through Big Daddy Unlimited. You will get the best pricing out there. And I've gotten that from multiple people who have tried it, friends of mine. Check it out. So one, if you believe in the Second Amendment, give yourself a break and check out Big Daddy Unlimited. No, but number two, the most important thing is you've got to put stuff like Trump derangement syndrome aside and realize that if you vote for Democrats, maybe some exceptions like Sinema and Manchin, but if you vote for Democrats, you are voting to take your guns away. You're voting to take your guns away because, believe me, the Democrats, what did Obama said? Clinging to your Bibles and your guns. What did Beto O'Rourke say? Hell yes, we're coming for your guns. What did President, God help us, Joe Biden say? He was 100% behind Beto O'Rourke. The only reason I think why Beto O'Rourke isn't in the cabinet right now is because he doesn't check enough boxes. Yeah, he's anti-gun, but he's white, straight, and makes a lot of money. So those things are probably, you know, the fact Beto O'Rourke is a white dude is probably the only thing that kept him from being in the cabinet. And you say, well, what about Buttigieg? Well, that kind of speaks for itself. He's in there because he checks the alphabet box, and Beto doesn't. Just my opinion, but an opinionated fact nonetheless. All right. So we're going to move on to another story here. This comes to you via Breitbart. And this should really offend you if you care about the rule of law, if you care about this country. I don't care even if you agree that we need to let more migrants come into this country and that we need to, open our borders up to everybody, this, I think, if you care about the country at all, if you care about it at all, you need to be alarmed by this next story. And as I've said many times before, I don't blame people for trying to come here by every means possible. If I was living in Guatemala and worried about my safety and the might of my family, I would do anything to get to America. So I don't blame them for coming. But no country that can't defend its borders can be a country for very long, period. It doesn't matter what type of country you are. But this is a Breitbart story report. Biden's Department of Homeland Security flying single adult male border crossers into U.S. cities. So it's not enough that we just let them come across the border. We have to fly them on the taxpayer dime to cities all across America. President Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security, DHS, is flying single adult male border crossers to cities across the United States, NBC News reports. NBC News is saying this. Now, let me just say, I always got to correct this. We're talking about illegal immigrants. They're not just migrants. They're coming here illegally. Their first act upon coming into the United States is a violation of U.S. laws. Now, I know the Democrats want to change that, but I am not changing that here until, if it's changed by law, then I'll say it differently, but they are illegal immigrants. In one recent case, 15 single adult male border crossers were apprehended crossing the southern border, sent to a Department of Homeland Security facility, and then bussed or put on domestic commercial flights, on your dime, by the way, into various U.S. cities. Let me ask you this, ladies and gentlemen. In what universe is this a good idea? To take people, especially young males, single males, and we know what that statistically is. I mean, single males of every race, creed, or color are a problem at some point. I mean, the vast majority of crimes are committed by single adult males. It's just a fact. And I'm not even talking about black, white, or whatever. It's just a statistical fact. And so when you start bringing single adult males, even elephants, by the way, they've done research on this, even elephants, if you have, the worst thing you can have is a bunch of single adult male elephants. They will stampede, tear crap up. That is just, it seems to be in the nature of mammals that if you're single and a male, you're looking for trouble. My dad used to say all the time, if you're out, and this is one of these times, if you don't get anything out of the show, maybe get this. He used to tell me, he said, son, let me tell you, if you're out past midnight and you hadn't already gotten with a woman, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get in trouble if you're out past midnight. Because he said, first of all, you're probably not going to find you a lady, which I know is what you're looking for. But you're going to get frustrated and you're going to get in trouble. I think he was right, man. Department of Homeland Security data published by NBC News shows that the Biden administration is releasing about 15% of all single adult border crossers into the U.S. interior and roughly 65% of adult border crossers who are arriving with children. And a lot of these children aren't even theirs. But I don't even trust these numbers. Do you really trust these numbers? Because these are just the ones that they catch and release. This doesn't even count, because there's been tons of video just in the last couple of weeks of people just overwhelming the border. The border is not closed. But here is something NBC News reports. Under Biden, the determination of who stays and who goes has become a lottery with winners and losers. Think about it. Let me check my time. Got a few minutes left. Have become a lottery with winners and losers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to play this video. This is from ABC News. We played it before, but I think it's very pertinent because this gentleman who is crossing the border illegally tells you exactly why he is coming now. And this is about a month old, but check it out.
This significant surge coming after President Biden ended Donald Trump's so-called Remain in Mexico policy, requiring asylum seekers to wait there for their court proceedings. Since then, many of those tent cities along the Mexican border have emptied out as people start streaming in. We were there when a bus of 56 asylum seekers arrived at Casa Alitas, a Catholic charity shelter in Tucson. Men, pregnant women, and children stepping off the bus with only what they could carry. This father, who asked that we not show his face, traveled to Mexico from Brazil with his wife and 3 young kids before crossing the border. Would you have tried to do this when Donald Trump was president?
Definitely not. Definitely. We had the chance, you know, the same violence that is going on today was there last year. We used to watch the news, and I definitely won't do this.
So did you come here because Joe Biden was elected president?
Basically. The main thing was the violence in my country. And the second thing, I think, was Joe Biden.
That about sums it up, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how you could have it any clearer than that. He said he was very adamant that if Donald Trump were still the president of the United States, in spite of the violence in his country, and as I say, I don't blame people for trying to escape that violence. But heck, people are trying to escape violence right here in the United States of America. They're coming from New York to places like Florida, from California to Texas. And I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I am American by birth, Floridian by the grace of God. Thank you so much, dear Lord. All I say to people coming here from other places, including places like New York, whatever you're running from, I don't blame you for running from it. Just don't bring it like luggage with you when you come to places like Florida and Texas. We need to keep our states free, and we need to keep them red. But this gentleman sums it up perfectly. He says there's no way, absolutely would not have come if Donald Trump were president. So the mere fact that Donald Trump would be president secures the borders to a certain extent. Period. That is about that. Think about that for a minute. How powerful was Donald Trump on the border that his mere presence in the White House stopped people from coming to America? And is it any wonder that the floodgates have now been opened? And, we're getting people. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I told you how to check out our various podcasts and all. But a couple of weeks ago, we reported that they apprehended at the border people from 70 different countries, literally from around the world, including some terrorist hotspots, by the way, were apprehended coming across our border. So this stuff is real, man. And so this guy is telling you flat out that if Donald Trump were president, he would not have risked it, even though his family is under violent threat. And the fact that Joe Biden, he said, yeah, that's basically the reason why I came. So if you don't think that this is all part of the plan to basically keep the Democrats in power, then you're just not woke. You're not truly woke. You got your head in the sand. All of this, our first story about doing away with the filibuster to this right here, is all connected. The Democrats are constantly connecting the dots. I don't know if they have a war room behind the scenes, but like when I talked to you about that Texas walkout story, the Democrats all got a text at one time while they were on the House floor saying, lock up your voting boxes and head out. And they went to, they're very well organized. Progressives never give up. They cannot be negotiated with. They cannot be reasoned with. They can only be defeated at the ballot box. But so let me check my time. I got just a couple minutes left. I want to put this story on your radar screen. I didn't have it in my list, but this is from USA Today. This shows you what we're up against. American citizens who are just trying to do what they think is right, what they're up against. Virginia teachers, USA Today story. Virginia teacher put on paid leave after speaking out against student pronoun gender identity policy. A Virginia school district placed a teacher on paid administrative leave after he spoke against a proposed policy that would have faculty refer to students using pronouns based on what aligns with their students' gender identity. Now, can you imagine trying to be a teacher and trying to keep up with whether Susie is a boy or a girl? That kind of reminds me of something I saw the other day. You remember that old Johnny Cash song, A Boy Named Sue? It'd be a lot easier on A Boy Named Sue right now than it was back then. I'm only saying. But I can only imagine how crazy it would be. Tanner Cross, a physical education teacher at Leesburg Elementary School, spoke out against the rights of transgender and expansive student policy May 25th at the Loudoun County public schools. They're having a lot of issues in Loudoun County. He said, Mr. Cross said the policy would go against his religious beliefs. Oh, my God. You can only have religious beliefs if you believe that, like Tucker Carlson said last night, that Dr. Fauci is he said Dr. Fauci is the Jesus of people who don't believe in God. I think he's right. He said, this is what Mr. Cross said, speaking out of love for those who are suffering from gender dysphoria, and he referenced this 60 Minutes article. But basically, you've got a teacher that voiced concerns about having elementary kids having this gender dysphoria, and he's essentially been fired for it. Now, he's on administrative leave, but what do you think is going to happen? They're just probably checking their legalities of firing him. Once they find out if it's legally permissible, he's gone. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to all our social media sites. Help us by pushing them out there as far and wide as you can. Remember our sponsors in the link above the show, no matter when or where you're watching it. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Boy, we got to pray for this country because she absolutely needs it and I think deserves it. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.